Chapter 1873. Night, Shitori Company Building. On her way home, Ning Shueluo received a call from the company. She just left Mrs. Li's party upset when bad news came from the company. Xeeling, which had been silent for a whole year and had been suppressed to the point of almost disappearing from the Chinese market, instantly became famous because of Ning Shi's plain white qipao at the Under the Heavens promotion ceremony. What was even more troublesome was that, taking advantage of this trend, Xeeling officially announced a batch of new designs that were about to hit the market, and this set was about to be sold out even though it was still in the pre-order stage. What returned to simplicity? It's obvious that Jiang Lang has run out of ideas and doesn't know how to design at all. How on earth did they sell this worthless junk that doesn't have any highlights or characteristics? The deputy director of design cursed angrily. Is it because of the celebrity effect? The completely plain white qipao that Ning Shi wore that day was even less distinctive, but her outfit. The designer who spoke seemed to want to say, "It's too stunning," but glanced at Dai Wei out of the corner of his eye, and his words changed stiffly. "It's just SOSO. I think it's all hyped up." One of the younger male designers said weakly, "Actually, I think it's because people are tired of the Chinese style with too many gorgeous colors and ornaments, so return to simplicity suddenly became popular." In the conference room, the atmosphere was stagnant and silent for a moment. Then someone said, "If they can do it, then so can we. Xeeling's lousy design can become popular, not to mention we have Boss Dai. Didn't they take the lead?" Dai Wei's face darkened, and he swept a cold glance at the person who spoke. "You mean for me to follow in the footsteps of Xeeling?" The person who spoke immediately stiffened and hurriedly said, "Of course I don't mean that. Boss Dai, you've always been a pioneer in the industry, always imitated, never surpassed. Why would you need to follow in the footsteps of others? What I mean is, that guy's design is too lousy, this time it's completely opportunistic, we don't have to care about it. His style is fresh to everyone for a while, it definitely won't last long." "That's right, wasn't it the same before? That guy definitely won't last long." The others also echoed. Dai Wei's expression still hadn't completely eased up. Although this matter wasn't a big problem, it still made him very unhappy. On the main seat, Ning Shueluo's expression was also very gloomy. "Although it's not a serious problem, we can't let our guard down. I need you to come up with a solution today. I won't allow anything to happen to history." Recently, there were enough things that made her feel stifled. Ning Shi's appearance was like a curse. Bad things happened one after another. Ning Shueluo held the pen in her hand and looked at the night sky outside the window. A chill flashed through her eyes. She could almost imagine how Zheng Minjun's attitude towards her would change in the future. It might even become more serious. His position in the Su family, which he had spent a whole year trying to stabilize, was completely destroyed in today's gathering. Dai Wei glanced at the deputy director of design viciously when he heard that. The deputy director got the hint and pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. He looked at Dai Wei and said, "Boss, what you said isn't right. How can you be following in the footsteps of others? You've already discovered the saturation of the extravagant design market a month ago, and prepared to change the style. You've even completed 70 to 80% of the design, but because it wasn't complete, you didn't announce it to everyone. Who knew that the rubbish design that came out a few days ago would snatch it away?" Chapter 1874. The deputy director's tone was filled with righteous indignation. He looked as if he could not take it anymore and wanted to fight for Dai Wei. At that moment, everyone in the conference room came to a realization. "I see. What a pity. Director Dai's control and sensitivity to the trend are indeed ahead of us. It's just that he's too focused on perfection. He's taken the lead just like that. Actually, I don't think we need to care about following the trend at all. The problem is whose design is the best. Moreover, who would think that history, the #1 company in the industry, would follow the trend of a small company that has been eliminated by the market? That's right. Even if we're following the trend, it should be them following us." Following the deputy director's words, everyone agreed. In reality, that was indeed the case. Even if they knew the release time, many buyers who did not know the truth would still subconsciously think that a small company was following the trend of a large company. It was not the first time that such a situation had occurred in the industry. Many small companies had finally made some progress, but they were crushed by the large companies just like that. The best-case scenario was that the design was acquired, and the worst-case scenario was that the market was completely occupied by the large companies. Seeing that the time was right, the deputy director seized the opportunity to speak. "I think, boss, you don't have to worry at all. Just complete the design and we'll release the new version." It'll definitely be better than Zealing. I agree. I agree too. Hearing the agreement, Dai Wei's eyes flashed with a hint of pride. He looked at Ning Xuelua, who was sitting at the head of the table, and said, "Let's listen to Director Ning on this matter." Ning Xuelua thought for a moment and decided, "Let's do that." Then, to be safe, she asked, "Are you sure there's no problem with your design?" Dai Wei said confidently, "If Director Ning trusts me, I won't let you down." This year was enough for him to train a group of subordinates that he could trust. As long as he integrated all their designs, it would be their glory even if he wrote his name on it. Late at night, Su Mansion. In fact, Ning Xuelua's guess was not wrong at all. Zheng Minjun locked herself in her bedroom as soon as she got home. Her mind was in a mess. Su Hongguang had just arrived home when he pushed open the door and saw Zheng Minjun pacing around the house restlessly. He couldn't help but frown. "It's so late. Why aren't you sleeping? Why are you pacing around the house? How did it go with Mrs. Li today?" Su Hongguang obviously attached great importance to this matter, so he specifically asked. At the mention of this, Zheng Minjun immediately looked at her husband excitedly. "Hongguang, you're finally back. What happened?" Seeing that Zheng Minjun's expression wasn't right, Su Hongguang frowned and asked. Zheng Minjun said anxiously, "I saw Ningxi at Mrs. Li's party today." "Ningxi? Didn't she disappear for more than a year? I heard that she's a kept woman of some rich businessman." Although Su Hongguang didn't pay attention to these things, he knew a little about them. At the mention of this, Zheng Minjun's expression changed. "It's not like that at all. I think Ningxi has been with the Zhuang family this year." "Why is Ningxi with the Zhuang family?" "Hongguang, don't you know that Ningxi went to Sky Spring Villa with Meng Linlang? She even introduced Ningxi as her niece in front of everyone. I'm afraid the Zhuang family has already acknowledged Ningxi." Hearing his wife's words, Su Hongguang's expression also changed. Chapter 1875. Xue Luo spent so much effort to get 2 invitations, but she couldn't even say a few words after she went there. Who knows how much effort it took to get her to say something good, but once Ningxi left, because of a small matter, Meng Linlang flew into a rage and stood up for her. Everyone present was trembling with fear, afraid of offending her. Even Madame Li's attitude towards her was attentive and careful. Zheng Minjun didn't tell him what had happened at that time or that she had said something wrong. Her tone was full of remorse for being robbed of what should have been hers. "Is what you're saying true?" Su Hongguang's expression was one of shock. "Of course it's true. I saw it clearly. And I saw that many madams were very interested in Ningxi." Zheng Minjun began to pace around anxiously. "Actually, we should have discovered it back then. We were too careless." Su Hongguang's expression was also a bit solemn. After a long silence he said, "Don't mention the past. How Ningxi is now has nothing to do with us." "How can it have nothing to do with us? Our Su Yan was supposed to marry a real lady from an aristocratic family. If Su Yan had married Ningxi, it wouldn't have been so difficult for him to move up now. The Qi family has always been suppressed by our Su family. It's only because our son married Minister Qin's daughter that they suddenly rose in status. Do you know how I feel every time I see Mrs. Qi's vile face?" Listening to his wife's endless complaints, Su Hongguang helplessly pinched between his eyebrows. "How can I not know this? But now things have become like this. At first we thought Ningxi was not good enough. Knowing the truth we still chose Xue Luo. Now we want to change it. Su Yan and Xue Luo have been married for more than a year. How can it be so easy?" Zheng Minjun looked angry. "How can you blame us? The Ning family lied to us first. Even if we let Su Yan divorce Xue Luo and marry someone else, we are still in the right. Do you know that with Ningxi's current status she will still be willing to marry into our Su family? Don't be so wishful thinking. You'll make a mess of the family." How could he not want to be related to the Zhuang family by marriage? However, there was a very practical problem. The current Ningxi was no longer the same as before. When Zheng Minjun heard her husband's tone, she immediately said proudly, "I'm sure I can do that. Have you forgotten how much that girl liked Su Yan back then? With our family Su Yan's looks, character, and talent, isn't he 100 times better than those high-ranking officials' young masters? Even if that lass has the support of the Zhuang family, she still can't compare to a proper family's young miss. If I go and express my goodwill, would she be unwilling?" Su Hongguang's attitude was already somewhat shaken, but he still cautiously said, "This matter should be discussed at a later date." The next day, while Ningxi rested leisurely for a day, the media, fans, all the entertainment companies, and even the entire entertainment industry were in an uproar. After Ningxi disappeared for more than a year, The entertainment headlines that suddenly appeared at the promotional event for Under the Heavens were all over the place. At the airport, Su Yin returned from a business trip. After getting off the plane, he was on the phone with the driver who came to pick him up. He inadvertently looked up and saw the big screen in the middle of the airport from the corner of his eye. When he saw the girl singing on the screen with red eyes, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Chapter 1876. Xiaoxi. Su Yin could no longer hear what the driver was saying on the other end of the phone. The noise around him receded like the tide. All that was left in his sight, eyes, and mind was a girl in a plain white cheongsam singing softly on the big screen. The girl was holy and beautiful. She was wearing a floral dress and had an innocent face. It was as if she would disappear again in the next moment. The image on the big screen ended. Ning Shi's figure disappeared. The man's heart tightened as if it had been clenched by a sharp claw. Xiaoxi. President Su. President Su, hello? The driver asked anxiously when he didn't get a reply from his boss. Su Yin ignored the driver and hung up the phone. He opened the search engine. He didn't need to search hard. He only needed to search for the keywords and he saw the entertainment headlines about Ning Shi's comeback. It wasn't until he saw the reports that the man finally felt it was real. The girl who disappeared as if she had evaporated from the world was really back. The man clenched his phone tightly. The silent feelings in the depths of his heart suddenly erupted like a dormant volcano. Starlight Entertainment. Han Zixuan Studio. Zheng Anru looked at the internet water army that had started to move. She looked confident and said proudly, Zixuan, don't worry. Ning Shi is asking to be humiliated by coming back this time. After the initial excitement and enthusiasm for Ning Shi's comeback, under Zheng Anru's deliberate guidance, more and more people began to question the reason why Ning Shi disappeared for a year. At the promotional event that day, it was Ning Shi who slyly diverted the fans' attention. How can it be so easy to get over it? She's just a has-been actress who retired after being abandoned by her sugar daddy and had no choice but to come out to fish for money. Everyone's spittle is enough to kill her. Han Zixuan's mood had been extremely bad these days. It wasn't until she saw the tide turn on the internet and more people were scolding Ning Shi that her expression softened a little. What inspirational queen of the entertainment industry. Does she dare to say what she did during the year she disappeared for? Now that you've been dumped by your sugar daddy, you're thinking of lying to your fans to make money again. Do you really think everyone is stupid? To be honest, Ning Shi's diehard fans, please don't criticize me. I used to be a loyal fan of Ning Shi, so I know very well that although Ning Shi's spear dance in the promotional activity is barely watchable, it can't compare with Brother Shi's previous level at all, okay? I think this year is really going to be a year of luxury and not making any progress. Yes. What we want is the best Brother Shi, not a defective product. At first, there were only passers-by who questioned it, but many people followed the trend of the internet. Gradually, some fans began to waver, except for some diehard fans and Jiang Mai's fans who remained silent for the time being. Zheng Anru happily browsed through the recent advertisements and collaborations in her hands. After Ning Shi's incident, you're even more popular now. It's even better than the scandal with Jiang Mai. Those investors who wavered before are also watching. They are not fools. They won't give up a popular star like you for a has-been. Han Zixuan held the iPad and slowly swiped it, enjoying the comments on the internet. Don't take it lightly. Ning Shi will be prepared. Zheng Anru didn't care at all. What preparation can she have? Even if she makes up a story, it can't explain the fact that she disappeared for a whole year. Chapter 1877. She's just a broken flower and she wants to make a comeback? She wants to suppress you? That's just wishful thinking. Just be a stepping stone for her. So what if that vixen bewitches her fans? If we can do it once, we can do it again. Don't worry, your fans will definitely come back to you, and they will be more loyal to you after this. Zheng Anru said confidently as if she was speaking from experience. Han Zixuan didn't take Ning Shi seriously. Seeing that the public opinion on the internet was completely on their side, she relaxed and said casually, let's find some time to get some fans some benefits. Don't worry, I've been preparing for it for a long time. The selection of the most popular male star in the entertainment circle is about to begin. Let's take advantage of this momentum and directly win it. Then Ning Shi will open her eyes wide and see clearly whose territory the entertainment circle is now. Han Zixuan didn't take it seriously. What's there to prepare for? Do I need to fight with her? Of course not. There's no doubt about the result. We'll completely crush her. Dear town. Liang Feixing was anxious as he read the increasingly ugly words on the internet and all kinds of slanderous accusations thrown at him. If she couldn't give her fans a satisfactory explanation, then everything would be in vain, and Ningxi's every step in the future would be as difficult as climbing up to heaven. Ningxi would have no chance to make a comeback once the label of keeping a mistress and retiring was put on her. In the small garden, Liang Feixing kept pacing back and forth anxiously. Depression? Study abroad? Change careers? Even if you're married, no matter what the reason is, it can't explain why you didn't show up for a whole year and didn't even come out to explain to your fans. He knew too well that if there wasn't a good enough reason to shut everyone up, there would definitely be endless troubles in the future. Liang Feixing sighed as he looked cautiously at Ningxi, who was sitting on a rattan chair. In reality, even he didn't know why Ningxi had gone into seclusion and why she had gone into seclusion so thoroughly. The netizens were now saying that Ningxi left without saying a word because she felt guilty. Some even suspected that she was cold-hearted and didn't care about her fans at all. Otherwise, why didn't she show up when so many people were worried about her? In addition to Ningxi, Jiangmai was also there. Except for taking a shower, he still dressed like an old man and did not pay attention to his image. Lei Ming had given up on treating him. He just hoped that he would not cause any trouble. Jiang Mai turned his head and glanced at Ningxi, only to see that she was deep in thought, looking a little embarrassed. Seeing this, Jiang Mai held his chin and muttered, "Why do you worry so much? Just tell the truth to the fans. You've been lying in bed in a vegetative state for an entire year. How are you supposed to appear? How are you supposed to appear? How are you supposed to speak? What?" Hearing this, Liang Feixing almost jumped up in shock. Ningxi, you've been in a vegetative state for a year? Although he had already guessed that Ningxi might be sick because of her body, he didn't expect the situation to be so serious. Moreover, with Ningxi's relationship with his boss, the inside story might involve a lot of things. This was probably the real reason why he didn't announce Ningxi's retirement. Just as countless thoughts flashed through Liang Feixing's mind, there was a sound of steady footsteps behind him. Liang Feixing immediately turned around with a solemn expression. "Boss." Lu Tingxiao handed him a file bag and said, "Publish it." "This is." Liang Feixing took it hesitantly. Opening it, he was overjoyed. The treatment record and diagnosis certificate of the Capital Military Hospital. With this, there will be no problem at all. Chapter 1878. Ningxi glanced at the thing in Liang Feixing's hand and guessed what it was. She couldn't help frowning. Lu Tingxiao knew what she was worried about. He walked up to her, squatted down and took her hand. "Sorry, I didn't announce the reason because I was worried that the media would get to the bottom of it and disturb your recuperation. Besides, you don't have to worry about anything else, whether it's the Lu family or the Zhuang family." Liang Feixing nodded as he listened. That's right. Anyway, he had bossed the super cheat. As for why he became a vegetable, it was an accident, a car accident. He could come up with a flawless reason. Ningxi sighed softly. "How could it be your fault? In fact, if it were me, I would choose not to tell the fans the truth." When Ningxi said this, she thought of how Lu Tingxiao spent every day, every minute, and every second in hope and endless disappointment. She suddenly felt a pang of heartache. Liang Feixing and Jiang Mai looked at the affectionate couple. Liang Feixing said, "Ahem, I suddenly feel so bright." Jiang Mai shook his legs calmly. "You'll get used to it." Liang Feixing, after discussing and arranging some follow-up matters, Liang Feixing made the next public relations plan. Now they could wait for the news to spread on the internet and hold a press conference tomorrow night to officially announce Ningxi's comeback and the truth that she had retired for a year. Su Tao, who was racking his brains to think of a way to deal with it, received a call from Liang Feixing. He was also shocked when he learned the reason why Ningxi retired. "I didn't expect it to be like this." "What's the reason?" "What will they say?" "The real reason involves a lot of things and can't be used. Second young master will block it and won't let the news leak out. We can use the car accident as the reason. It's simple and crude, but it's the most acceptable one. Shall I inform the media and announce the press conference tomorrow?" Okay. After the call, Su Tao lit a cigarette, thought for a moment and posted on Weibo. "Tomorrow at 8 p.m. Royal Duke Hotel, Ningxi's comeback press conference." Simple and clear. As soon as this post was posted, it caused a sensation on Weibo. Ningxi was finally going to hold an official comeback press conference. Apart from that, it was also because of Ningxi's retirement. The comments under Weibo were all asking questions. What about the reason for Ningxi's retirement? Is it really because she abandoned herself and found a sugar daddy just because she became famous like other female stars? We only care about the reason why Ningxi retired. Why did he leave without saying a word? What does she take her fans for? Throw it away after using it? What are you all so anxious about? The officials have already announced that there will be a press conference. Of course they will give us an explanation. Before things are clear, you keep talking about finding a sugar daddy. You don't even have the most basic trust. Is this your so-called love and support? The Internet Water Army and the fans who were led by the Internet Water Army's words, as well as some of Ningxi's diehard fans who couldn't stand it anymore, all the comments were mixed together and there was a war below. Su Tao looked at the expected development and posted a second Weibo. Sometimes the truth is better forgotten. Ah, screw Zheng. When I was in this circle, you were still playing in the mud, trying to stir up public opinion? Chapter 1879. Liang Feixing was on his way back to the company when he saw Su Tao's second post. Liang Feixing didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw this post, which was a great contrast to Su Tao's image. In terms of shamelessness, Su Tao was quite suitable to be Ningxi's agent, because he could make up for Ningxi's shortcomings. Ningxi was too honest and so was Lin Ziji's style. Han Zixuan would post a post on Weibo to show her misery even if she had a scratch on her arm. But Ningxi, no matter how badly injured she was or how hard she worked, she never complained or mentioned it to her fans. Everyone only saw her bright and beautiful, and the media always said that she was a rare genius actress in the entertainment circle, as if all her achievements were based on her talent. Liang Feixing knocked on the door and walked into Su Tao's office, only to find Yi Sudong there. Yi Sudong's face was very gloomy. What do you mean? Ningxi is back and you didn't say a word about it. As the general manager of the company, I heard it from others. Now you're trying to find an agent for Ningxi, and you're holding a press conference. Did you ask me for all of your questions? Leaving and coming back as you please? What do you think golden era is? Liang Feixing raised his eyebrows. So President Yi doesn't want Ningxi to return to Xingshi? Don't worry, I'll help you pass the message. Yi Sudong, who had been showing off just now, suddenly changed his expression. Liang Feixing, don't try to drive a wedge between us. When did I say that I didn't want Ningxi to come back? I meant that you should consult me, the general manager, first. Look at the comments on the internet, it's simply unbearable to look at. It's because you didn't prepare anything and acted recklessly without saying a word that we're in such a passive position. Let me tell you, from now on I will take over everything about Ningxi. The two of you will be temporarily suspended from your duties and go home. What right do you have to decide all this without the company's permission? Who gave you the courage to do this? You are rebelling. Yi Sudong was the one who complained first. He was even prepared to kick them away and grab Ningxi tightly, relying on her to turn the situation around. Su Tao and Liang Feixing looked at each other, and their faces were a little gloomy. Although they expected Yi Sudong to be in a difficult position, they didn't expect him to be so shameless. If Yi Sudong really intervened, they would be in trouble. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from the door. There was a knock on the door. Then the three of them saw a man leaning against the door. The man was wearing a flashy light blue suit. His exquisite and dazzling face was enough to kill a group of handsome men in the entertainment industry. I gave them the courage. Do you have a problem with that? The moment the man's lazy voice fell, Su Tao and Liang Feixing's faces were filled with excitement. Second young master. Especially Su Tao. He didn't know the relationship between Ningxi and the Lu family. Xingshi was just one of them. Ever since Ningxi's departure, Golden Era had been given free rein by Lu Jingli. After all, the Lu Group had hundreds of companies under it, and Golden Era was just one of the companies that Lu Jingli had trained on. When Yi Sudong saw Lu Jingli, his arrogant expression immediately changed. His face turned pale and he said in a trembling voice, Second young master. Chapter 1880. Damn it. Didn't second young master return to the company? Why did he suddenly come to Golden Era? And at a time like this? Yi Sudong wiped the sweat off his forehead and said eagerly, Second young master, it's not what you think it is. Those two people are too reckless. How could they do something so reckless when it's Ningxi's comeback? Because of that, I realized that Golden Era's situation has not been good for the past year. However, when Ningxi suddenly disappeared, Lin Ziji didn't care about the company and resigned. I could only try my best to find Han Zixuan, the most suitable candidate to replace Ningxi. Who would have thought that Han Zixuan and Zheng Anru would be ungrateful and take all our resources to another company? They even poached so many of our people. But don't worry, second young master, I'll take over Ningxi personally. I'll make sure that Golden Era returns to its former glory. As long as he could make a comeback, everything would be fine. Yi Sudong expressed his loyalty and pushed all the blame away. It was Ningxi's fault, Lin Jiji's fault, Han Zixuan's, Zheng Anru's fault, and Starlight Entertainment's fault. Anyway, it had nothing to do with him. This level of shamelessness was simply breathtaking. Lu Jingli smiled as he looked at the flattering man in front of him. Do I look like an idiot? Su Tao's mouth twitched while Liang Feixing turned his head to hold back his laughter. Yi Sudong's face contorted. How can this be? Why do you say that, second young master? The smile on Lu Jingli's face faded, and was replaced by a cold glare. I've never touched any of the company's artists. Do you think the company is your harem? Do you think you can spoil anyone you want? Do you think you can give resources to anyone you want? Lu Jingli's tone and demeanor were not inferior to Lu Tingxiao's when he was enraged. Yi Sudong's initial plan to bluff his way out of the situation was gone. Yi Sudong broke out in cold sweat as he struggled. No. Why would I touch any of the company's artists? Those are all rumors. Don't believe them, second young master. I'm really doing this for the company. Lu Jingli had no patience to listen to his nonsense. He raised his hand and gestured for someone from the company to take over Golden Era and deal with Yi Sudong. Yi Sudong was still indignant until he was taken away. He could not understand why Lu Jingli would suddenly appear. Damn it. Liang Feixing. Su Tao. It must be those two bastards. He actually dared to complain behind his back. He wanted to see what would become of Shengshi Entertainment after he was kicked out of the company. No matter what, he was the one who brought Han Zixuan up. Did they really think that Ningxi could bring Han Zixuan down or even save Golden Era? What a joke. Su Tao heaved a long sigh of relief when he saw Lu Jingli deal with Yi Sudong without any hesitation. He didn't forget to flatter Lu Jingli. Second young master, you're really wise and perceptive. Lu Jingli said expressionlessly, I've helped you solve everything that needs to be solved. The new general manager will cooperate with you. If you need anything, you can look for him directly. Thank you, second young master. Lu Jingli nodded and left. Looking at the man's departing figure, Su Tao sighed. It's only been a year, and second young master seems to have changed into a different person. Liang Feixing also nodded. I heard that there has been a lot of turmoil in the group recently. Just when Su Tao and Liang Feixing were impressed by Lu Jingli's maturity, in the car, a certain Koi was making a phone call to claim credit. Sister-in-law, I'm telling you, I was so cool just now. I was so cool that you had to cook me a sweet and sour pork ribs. Chapter 1881. Soon after Su Tao posted on Weibo. Zheng Anru also saw it at once. Tut, how dare he hold a press conference. He even posted that it's better to forget the truth. Did he think that by saying some inexplicable and ambiguous words, he would be able to avoid the important and dwell on the trivial and divert the attention? It's the same old trick again. I won't let him get away with it so easily this time. Keep an eye on him. Han Zixuan glanced at Zheng Anru. She didn't want to make any mistakes again. Jiang Mai's affair had hurt her a lot. She took great pains to explain to the fans that it was out of professional ethics that she didn't come forward to explain the truth in time. However, the more the fans hated and wronged Jiang Mai before, the more they would vent their anger on her at this moment. It would take a long time to appease the fans' anger, not to mention that Jiang Mai's fans were well known in the industry for their high fighting power. After this incident, she had lost a lot of fans of her and Jiang Mai. The most important thing was that after this incident, she couldn't have any scandals with Jiang Mai in the future. Not only that, she had to avoid Jiang Mai's name as much as possible. She was going to get revenge from Ningxi. Zixuan, don't worry. I will keep an eye on them. We will also arrange for our people to deal with the reporters. No matter what reason they use, we will never let him get away with it. Think about it, what reason can explain that Ningxi didn't show up for a whole year? Just the fact that she abandoned her fans is enough to make it difficult for her to move forward in this industry. The next night in the Royal Duke Hotel. The press conference of Ningxi's comeback was about to be held. Since morning, the outside of the hotel had been surrounded by fans and various media reporters. The entire hotel was so packed that not even a drop of water could trickle through. It was even harder to get an invitation to the press conference. 10 minutes before the start of the press conference, a black car was parked across the road a few hundred meters away from the hotel. In the car, Su Yan was staring at the entrance of the hotel. After a lot of noise, a nanny car stopped at the entrance of the hotel. Ningxi was quickly escorted into the hotel by her bodyguards. From Su Yan's angle, he only saw the corner of a light-colored dress. However, he suddenly clenched the steering wheel and breathed heavily. After learning that Ningxi had appeared, he went to her place, including the place where she might be. However, he still found nothing, so he could only wait here. Since he learned that Ningxi was going to hold a press conference here yesterday, he had parked his car near the hotel overnight. At this moment, the multifunction hall of the hotel was fully occupied. Even the walkways were filled with reporters. The entire press conference would be broadcasted live on a popular video website. Other than the reporters present, all the fans were waiting in the live broadcast room. May I ask if it's true that Ningxi retired because she had a sugar daddy? Ningxi doesn't want to make progress and her strength has declined. Can she really continue her previous glory after her comeback this time? Ningxi was irresponsibly absent from so many important occasions and even the award ceremony. She ignored the fans' worries and calls. Now she appears to make money. Isn't it disrespectful to the fans? At the beginning, the reporters' questions were sharper and sharper. All sorts of nasty words and questions were thrown at him in the live stream channel. What should I do? Just pretend that I have a heart of glass. No matter what Brother Shi's reason is, I still feel like I've been abandoned. Upstairs, you're not alone. Chapter 1882. Let's see what Brother Shi has to say first. What's there to see? No matter what happens, come out and say something to reassure us, okay? But no, nothing. I think Zixuan is the best. She interacts with us a lot and is so kind. It feels like she's valued. There were more and more such comments. The reporters and internet water army arranged by Zheng Anru firmly grasped the fatal point of abandoning fans. They didn't forget to praise Han Zixuan while belittling Ningxi. Thank you for coming today and thank you to the fans who are waiting in front of the live broadcast. The press conference began. After a brief opening speech, Liang Feixing handed the microphone to Ningxi. About the reason why Ningxi retired a year ago, Ningxi will explain it to you personally. Hearing Liang Feixing's words, the press conference suddenly fell into a dead silence. Even the comments in the live broadcast room suddenly stopped. All eyes were focused on the girl sitting in the middle on the stage. Even Su Tao and Liang Feixing looked a little nervous. Although there was no problem with the evidence this time, this step was really too critical. Ningxi took the microphone from Liang Feixing. After a few seconds of silence, she said, I'm sorry that I can't appear here until now to give you an explanation. 1 year ago, I retired because I was accidentally injured and became a vegetable and fell into a deep coma. The moment Ningxi's voice fell, all the reporters' expressions were full of shock, and after a short pause in the live stream room, it completely exploded. Vegetable? Brother, she actually became a vegetable? Really? Was I hallucinating just now? Liang Feixing and Su Tao nervously paid attention to the reactions of all parties. They were waiting for Ningxi to continue speaking, but found that she had already put down the microphone. Liang Feixing almost collapsed. I asked you to explain the reason, but you really didn't say anything else? Su Tao looked helpless. Seeing that Ningxi performed so well at the promotional ceremony of the world that day, he thought he didn't have to worry about it today, so he just gave her a brief reminder. Now he knew that Ningxi really wasn't good at stirring up emotions, acting pitiful, and showing weakness. Was that why she chose to sing at that time to express her feelings? Fortunately, Liang Feixing and Su Tao were able to control the situation. Liang Feixing quickly asked the staff to send a certificate to all the reporters and announced it on the big screen behind them. What is this? I don't know. Let's take a look. Damn. The Capital Military Hospital's diagnosis. Severe brain injury. Vegetable? Before the reporters and fans in the live broadcast room could question Ningxi's words, they had been smashed in the face by the irrefutable evidence. At the same time, Su Tao said solemnly, back then, when Ningxi was first injured, everyone thought a miracle would happen. This girl would definitely wake up. After all, she has gone through so much. So, wish. Chapter 1883. Su Tao's words were so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Su Tao took a deep breath and continued, but as time went by, Ningxi still didn't wake up. At that time, Ningxi's mother and 9 firmaments were released one after another. She was really popular. We had never been as popular as we were at that time. We hoped that she would not be so popular, so that we could buy more time for her. Even if it was just for one day, however. In the end, We worked so hard for so long. In the end, it was still the worst result. 3 months for 3 whole months, Ningxi still did not wake up. At that time, the doctor said that after 3 months with her condition, it was impossible for her to wake up. Su Tao continued to narrate everything in detail to everyone, and even every detail made everyone feel their despair and grief. Su Tao's expression was a little sarcastic. You all know what happened next. From the fans' riot to Ningxi being completely forgotten, it was only a year. We never announced the truth of Ningxi's retirement. For this, we need to apologize to every fan who cares about Ningxi. Speaking of this, Su Tao changed the topic again and his eyes were firm. But even if we were given another chance, even if we knew the consequences of doing so, we would still choose to do so. Because once it was announced, Ningxi would have to face endless harassment from reporters and endless troubles. Even if she becomes a vegetable and lies in bed, she will not have a moment of peace. Hearing this, none of the reporters present said a word. Even they had to admit that if Xingshi really announced the truth of Ningxi's situation, they would definitely search all the hospitals to find Ningxi. They wanted to get first-hand news of Ningxi. Even for a long time after that, there would be opportunistic reporters staring at her, trying to make a big news. Hearing Su Tao's words, Ningxi's fingers slightly clenched. Su Tao said a lot of things that even she did not know. Although Su Tao heard everything from Jiang Mai and the others, and he was only a middleman recounting the events of that year, he instantly brought back the scenes of that year. What Sister Gigi, Jiang Mai, Lu Tingxiao and the others had experienced when she was in a coma. With that, Su Tao took a look at Ningxi beside him. We apologize to Ningxi for the fans' misunderstanding because of our handling of the matter. But at that time, Ningxi replied that if it were her, she would also choose not to say anything. Hearing Su Tao's words, there was a small commotion in the live audience and the live stream channel. Su Tao paused for a moment, sighed softly and continued, Ningxi said, instead of letting you hold on to a slim hope, and wait for an unknown period of time, it's better to let you completely forget her. Sometimes it was better to forget the truth. So this was the real meaning of Su Tao's Weibo post. Just as Su Tao's voice fell at that very moment at every corner of the country, the fans who were waiting in the live streaming channel all burst into tears. The original has always been, it was all a misunderstanding. So from the beginning until now, it was not Brother Shi who had abandoned them, but they who had abandoned her. Good morning, I finished updating. I got home very late last night. I was going to update today but I was afraid that you guys would be waiting too long so I wrote it overnight. I hope everyone has a good time reading this. The author is going to take a nap. Chapter 1884. Su Tao's eyes swept over the silent reporters, and then he glanced at the overwhelming comments of the fans on the mobile phone. Oh, did they think it was over? Oh, her strength has been greatly reduced? She doesn't want to make progress? She's fooling her fans? Ningxi has been lying in bed in a vegetative state for a whole year. When she woke up, she even struggled to walk and talk. Even if she insisted on rehabilitation every day, it was impossible for her to recover in such a short time. But even so, she can still beat someone's so-called half-year professional training results. Who is the one who doesn't want to make progress? Who is the one who deceives her fans? Who is the one who just wants to make money? She is even worse than a vegetative person. How dare she come out and sell herself as a diligent and inspirational person? Who gave you the confidence? Su Tao's voice echoed in the hall, and he suddenly pointed the spearhead at Han Zixuan. Ningxi swept all the awards a year ago and dominated the entertainment circle. She did her best. Even if God played a big joke on her, even if she was forgotten by the world, she had no regrets. At first, Ningxi had no intention of making a comeback, but someone pushed her further and further. Speaking of this, Su Tao's eyes suddenly turned cold. At the same time, Liang Feixing played an edited video on the big screen behind him. In the video, a reporter in red asked Han Zixuan what she thought of Meng Chang'e, who was played by Ningxi in the original novel. Then came Han Zixuan's answer. Every word was full of sarcasm. She even directly said, Zixuan is not comparable to those inferior people who rely on their looks and bodies to get to the top. This is an insult to Zixuan. In the video when Zheng Anru said, those inferior people who rely on their looks and bodies to get to the top, all the fans in the live broadcast room suddenly exploded and cursed. And when Zheng Anru finally said, I hope you won't mention these insulting questions in the future, and don't mention Zixuan's name together with those inferior people. The anger of the fans in the live broadcast room reached its peak. At the same time, everyone suddenly understood one thing. Fuck you, Zheng Anru. How dare you say that about our brother Shi? As a top agent, how could she slander others in public without any basis, and the one she slandered was a senior in the circle? Is this her profession? Is this her accomplishment? Ah, my dear ones, I suddenly realized something. Jiang Mai. It turns out that the reason why Jiang Mai suddenly left the stage and posted that expletive was because of Brother Shi. Oh my god. It really is. Jiang Mai left abruptly after Han Zixuan's agent said those words. He's so cool. That Weibo post is so good. This is so satisfying. Our Brother Shi is more handsome, okay? Do you still remember Brother Shi's answer to the reporter, who said I'm not here to make trouble? Oh. I want to be Sano CP fan for 10,000 years. Han Zixuan, get out of my way. The reporters present did not expect such a reversal at all, especially the reporters that Zheng Anru had planted. They were directly dumbfounded. Su Tao's surprise attacks came one after another, simply beating them until they had no strength to resist at all. This comeback press conference not only clarified the truth, but it also gave Han Zixuan and the others a tight slap in the face. Chapter 1885. At this point, Ning Shi's comeback was completely the will of the people, the general trend, and no external force could stop it. At the end of the press conference, Su Tao said with a sneer, "The culprit of Ning Shi's car accident is still on the run." This sentence was ambiguous and didn't mention anyone, but it could instantly push Han Zixuan to the teeth of the storm and set her up. As soon as Ning Shi left, Han Zixuan was promoted from a newcomer in Shengshi Entertainment to the top of the entertainment circle. So, was Ning Shi's car accident an accident or someone else's? If it was someone else's, who did it? I'll leave this unlimited imagination to those reporters who want to create big news at the drop of a hat. After the press conference. In the nanny car, Liang Feixing raised his hand with a smile. Su Tao raised his eyebrows and also reached out his hand to high-five him. Liang Feixing stared at his high-spirited appearance and clicked his tongue. Sure enough, you should be the one to do these shameless things. You're so good at setting people up. Of course, he was also good at inciting people's hearts. Su Tao looked as if he had been praised and nodded his head. Of course. Then he covered his face and turned to Ning Shi in the back seat to ask for credit. Your Majesty, what do you think of my performance today? Have I passed the probation period? Ning Shi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Well, very good. Accustomed to Lin Ziji's rigid working style, Su Tao's style was really completely different. However, for her current complicated and tricky situation, Su Tao's tactful style was indeed a good thing. It could make up for her shortcomings. Haha, now Zheng Anru and Han Zixuan must be furious. And that bastard Wang Haojuan. Who asked you to poach my people? Su Tao looked happy. He had been holding back his anger for so long and finally vented it. Liang Feixing was also relieved that the most critical step was taken smoothly, but he still said cautiously, "This time we can certainly hurt her, but it's impossible to trip her up." Su Tao shook his legs and stared at Ning Shi with shining eyes. "What are you afraid of? My green dragon crescent moon knife is no match for Zheng Anru's stupid kitchen knife." Ning Shi, this metaphor? At the same time, Jiang Mai had just finished watching the live broadcast of Ning Shi's comeback press conference at home. Looking at the overwhelming number of "Jiang Mai is so handsome, Jiang 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 Mai is so compatible with our Brother Shi," a certain golden-haired man was in an unprecedentedly good mood. Jiang Mai picked up his phone and called Lei Ming. "Hello, Brother Ming." "Hey, little ancestor, what's the matter?" Lei Ming asked while trembling with fear. He had always been the one to call this little ancestor, and this fellow rarely took the initiative to look for him. "Book a stylist for me," Jiang Mai said. When Lei Ming heard this, he was shocked. "Oh my god. Little ancestor, you've finally thought it through. I'll make an appointment for you right away." "Cough, but what style do you want?" "Yours truly agrees to the change." "Lei Ming, how could Jiang Mai be so cooperative? This time the most popular male actor must be mine. Give me some attention, understand?" Jiang Mai urged. Lei Ming, not only did he cooperate, he even knew how to improve. In the past, when hadn't he begged Jiang Mai to give him some attention? But Jiang Mai just looked impatient and indifferent. He couldn't believe that he had finally made it. Chapter 1886. At the same time, many people were paying attention to the press conference. In the practice room of Shengshi Entertainment, the new and old artists who were watching the live broadcast cheered excitedly. "Wow, Brother Tao is awesome. Han Zixuan and the others are in for it. I didn't expect Brother Shi to retire because of this. Oh my god, a vegetable in a car accident. I even said that Brother Shi had regressed when I saw him brandishing his gun. I want to apologize to Brother Shi. Brother Shi can't be too awesome. Senior Zhang's grievances have been cleared and Brother Shi is back. Xingshi is saved. Compared to the joy of Xingshi Entertainment, Starlight Entertainment was gloomy like never before. As soon as Ning Shi's comeback press conference ended, the executives of Starlight Entertainment held an emergency meeting. Zheng Anru was so angry that she was about to vomit blood. That's Su Tao. He's so shameless. What did he mean by that last sentence? He's obviously trying to frame us for Ning Shi's car accident. Arrange a lawyer right now, I'm going to sue him for defamation. Lu Wenliang, the director of public relations, glanced at her and said with a dark face, he only said that the perpetrator escaped and nothing else. How are you going to sue him? On the other hand, you as a manager didn't think before you spoke. You said something so groundless on that occasion. What did you mean by selling your body? Now they have something on you. Look at how badly we're being scolded on the internet. Zheng Anru's face was cold. What groundless? Everyone knows that Ning Shi sold her body and her face. Do we still need evidence? Lu Wenliang sneered. Show us the evidence if you have any. Do you think it's enough to say that? How can a top-notch manager say something like that? I can't communicate with you at all. You, Zheng Anru was about to speak when Wang Haojuan interrupted her angrily. Alright, stop arguing. Did I ask you to come here to quarrel? Ning Shuilua had just dealt with Zhe Ling's matter when she received the news from Starlight Entertainment. She was extremely annoyed. Wasn't what happened at the promotional event enough to wake you guys up? Why did this happen again and again? Damn it. Ningxi. Why is it Ningxi again? Zhao Wenliang said in a low voice. Vice President Ning, it's not that we don't want to be vigilant, but Ningxi's evidence is too strong. We can't refute this reason at all. We just didn't expect that Su Tao would not only incite his fans but also be so shameless. He not only put the blame on us but also set us up. Although Su Tao doesn't have any evidence, gossip is a fearful thing. If this matter were to spread, it would greatly affect an artist's reputation. Ning Shuilua pinched the space between her eyebrows. Then we have to make use of the fact that there's no evidence. We can't let the fans be incited. As for Enru, I want you to issue a public apology now. Make sure you're sincere. What? You want me to apologize? Zheng Anru's expression changed instantly, and she looked at Han Zixuan subconsciously. Han Zixuan's expression was full of impatience. If you don't apologize, do you want me to go? Zheng Anru fell silent. Wang Haojuan facepalmed. That's the only thing we can do now. We'll try our best to recover our losses. Enru, you must take responsibility for this matter. Zixuan's image cannot be damaged in any way. Chapter 1887. I know. Zheng Anru held her breath and said. Ning Shuilua warned with a serious expression. The voting organized by Entertainment Light will begin in a few days. Zixuan must be the #1 female star this year. Entertainment Light was the most authoritative consulting magazine in the entertainment industry. Every year they would hold a grand online poll. Based on the votes they would come up with various rankings. The one that received the most attention was the male celebrity ranking. Other than that, there were also some other rankings such as the most wanted to marry celebrity list, most promising newcomers list, and even the most wanted to sleep celebrity list. Every year there would be a fan war and it had a great influence in the entertainment industry. In the last voting, Ningxi had beaten the second place with twice the number of votes, and that was when Ningxi had disappeared from the public for 3 months. Zheng Anru nodded. Don't worry, Vice President Ning. We will win. With Zixuan's popularity, she would definitely be the #1 this year. If you need anything, just tell me and President Wang. The company will do our best to cooperate with you, Ning Shuilua said. Even if Ningxi came back, the voting would start next month, and she couldn't be compared with Han Zixuan. But she didn't want to make any mistakes. The meeting lasted for more than 2 hours. After deciding on the solution, Wang Haojuan said, Then let's do it. Dismissed. I have to appease the investors. As soon as the result of Ningxi's press conference was announced, the investors of the world started to make trouble again. At this moment, Wang Haojuan was actually full of regret. Ningxi used to be an artist of Starlight Entertainment. If he had known that this girl would have such great potential and explosive power, he would have protected her even if he had to die. But now he had created such a troublesome opponent for himself. Since he couldn't win her over, he had to make sure that she couldn't make a comeback. He had to protect Han Zixuan. Even if the investment in the world couldn't get the expected return, he had to make sure that Zishuang could suppress Ningxi. Suppressing Ningxi was equivalent to suppressing Xingshi Entertainment. He wouldn't give Xingshi Entertainment any chance to make a comeback. After the press conference, Ningxi went back to the company and had a meeting with Su Tao. The company was full of flowers and gifts from her friends and fans. After the meeting, Ningxi looked at the gifts carefully and asked the staff to put them away. When she was putting away a bouquet, a card fell from it. Ningxi casually picked it up and glanced at it. She saw a familiar name at the signature. Li Mayan? And Yu's son? A busy diplomat actually remembered to specially send her a bouquet of flowers? Just as his aunt had said, although Li Mayan was young, he was meticulous when it came to dealing with people. Ningxi didn't mind, but out of politeness she still sent a message to thank him. About 5 minutes later, Li Mayan replied, "You're welcome. It's just that I didn't expect Xiaoxi to have so many fans and find this bouquet of flowers. It shows that you have carefully read every gift and you are an idol worthy of fans' love." As expected of a diplomat, he was too good with his words. Although it might have been superficial words, his praise was reasonable and well-founded. Chapter 1888. In the black car near the hotel. After Su Yin finished watching the live broadcast of the press conference, he didn't move for a long time as if he was petrified. Xiaoxi, such a big thing happened to her in this 1 year. And he didn't know anything at all. There were even times when he, like those people, questioned her. That once innocent and pure little girl, for him, left the place where she lived for 18 years for him, worked hard to adapt to the life she didn't like for him, bit by bit stripped away everything, bit by bit changed herself. She said, "Brother Yin, believe me, I can do it." She said, "Brother Yin, one day I can stand side by side with you." For the sake of their future, she had given up so much and worked so hard for so long. However, in the end he had broken the promise between them and left her all alone, abandoned by everyone. Shueluo already had everything, but because of an accident she had to start all over again. A certain decision in her heart, like a seed bursting out of the soil, broke through the sky in an instant. But she never responded to his messages and calls, not to mention to see him. The man picked up his phone, thought for a moment, and dialed a number. "Hello, Xiaonhua?" "Ah, brother Su Yen." Tang Nua's tone sounded a bit unnatural. When Su Yen and Ningxi were together he was very close to Su Yen, almost treating him as his own brother. But since Su Yen and Ning Shui got together, they no longer contacted each other. "Have you seen the news? There's news about your sister." Su Yen said. "Ah, my sister? What happened to my sister? Didn't she go abroad for further studies? I've been preparing for the exam recently, so I didn't go online much." Tang Nua's first reaction was that "my sister" must be Ningxi, and he didn't think of anyone else. Xingshi Entertainment. After Ningxi finished her work, she was about to go home when her personal phone suddenly rang. The caller ID showed that it was Tang Nua. Looking at the name on the screen, Ningxi's eyes suddenly warmed, and then she felt a headache. Sure enough, as soon as she picked up the phone, Tang Nua's nagging came immediately. "Sister. Such a big thing happened to you and I didn't know. Your assistant said you went abroad to study and I actually believed it. I haven't heard from you for a year and I didn't even know to look for you. I don't deserve to be your younger brother. You've been so good to me, but when you were in trouble and danger, I couldn't help you at all. I didn't even—" Ningxi helplessly interrupted the boy on the other end of the phone. Well, how can it be your fault?" "It's my fault. I'm sorry to make you worry. But don't worry, I'm alive and kicking now. There's no problem at all." He was in a vegetative state for a whole year. How could he be fine? Those people were simply too much. He said that to you. Be good, it's all in the past. "Sister, where are you now? Can I come find you?" "Oh, if it's not convenient, then forget it." Tang Nua asked cautiously. "If you want to see me, why wouldn't it be convenient? I'll go find you. But it's a little late now. Should I go to Sea City tomorrow?" Ningxi said. Sis, I'm in the capital. Have you forgotten?" "Ah, that's right. My brother is awesome, he got into a university in the capital." Ningxi suddenly smiled. "I'm at the company. It's quite close to your place. It'll only take a few minutes. Wait for me, I'll go to your place now." "Sis, are you sure? What if it causes a sensation?" "It's late at night, it's fine. Besides, I'll change my clothes." "Oh, okay, then I'll wait for you at the stands of the school field?" "Okay." Chapter 1889. "Brother Tao, I'm going to Capital University. Can you help me find some inconspicuous clothes?" Ningxi asked Su Tao. Su Tao nodded. "Okay, Your Majesty. But why are you going to Capital University so late at night? To see my brother. Ningxi answered. Do you need me to accompany you? Su Tao looked as if he wanted to be a leg ornament. It's okay. I'll have bodyguards around. Ningxi smiled. All right. Wait a moment, I'll go look for it for you. Su Tao happily ran off to serve the queen. After a moment, Su Tao proudly came over with a set of clothes. Ningxi, what do you think of this? It's absolutely inconspicuous. Ningxi looked at the Capital University uniform in Su Tao's hands and was speechless. It was really inconspicuous. She disguised herself as a student of Capital University? How did you get the uniform of Capital University? Ningxi asked curiously. Su Tao shrugged. I don't know. I got it from the warehouse. It's not a costume. It's the original version. I've checked the size. It should fit you. Imperial Capital University's school uniform was famous for its beauty, so even though Imperial Capital University didn't require everyone to wear the school uniform, many students still liked to wear it. This will do. It's pretty good. Thank you, Brother Tao. Ningxi thanked him and went into the changing room to change. Then she tied her hair into a ponytail and put on a mask. Soon she was dressed. When Ningxi came out after changing, Su Tao's eyes lit up like a light bulb. Damn. Who said my majesty was inconspicuous? Even if I'm blindfolded, I know she's a super beauty. I'd rather not wear a mask. Oh, I'm so worried. I don't want to sleep or drink. I have to keep an eye on her all the time. Otherwise, I'll be worried that she'll be eaten by a pig. Capital University. At night, the campus was lit by street lights. Students walked by in groups of 3 or 5. On the playground, there were a few couples sitting sporadically. Some people were sweating and running on the track. Ningxi was wearing her school uniform. As she walked, she suddenly felt her whole body become quiet. Back then, with her grades, it would not have been a problem for her to get into Imperial Capital University. Unfortunately, because she had returned to the Ning family midway, all her energy had been spent on how to adapt and cater to those so-called celebrities, and her studies had been delayed. Because Su Tao had unexpectedly found this uniform for her, it made her feel like her dream had come true. Ningxi looked around as she slowly walked towards the stands. Raising his head, he saw a familiar figure in the corner of the grandstand. Ningxi quickened her pace and walked up the stairs towards Tang Nua. Tang Nua was also wearing the uniform of Imperial Capital University, but the collar of his shirt was unbuttoned, and his coat was casually slung over his shoulder. After not seeing him for a year, the young man's facial features and figure had grown a lot. He was handsome and bright, and he was probably very popular with the girls in school. Ningxi sighed inwardly. She had a sense of déjà vu of, my young man who had just grown up, Xiao Nua. Tang Nua was looking around eagerly when he suddenly saw a girl wearing a mask next to him. She was calling his name, so he looked over suspiciously. Classmate? You are. Ningxi took off the mask on her face. Tang Nua suddenly widened his eyes in surprise and joy. Sister. Chapter 1890. But sis, why are you wearing our school uniform? Just a disguise. Do I look like one? Ningxi chuckled. Tang Nua nodded. Yes. I can't tell you're not a student. Xiao Nua, you've grown taller and more handsome. I almost didn't recognize you just now. How is it? There must be a lot of girls in school who like you, right? Do you have a girlfriend? Ningxi teased. Tang Nua blushed and scratched his head. Sis, don't tease me. I just want to study hard. I don't want to have a girlfriend. Pfft. Ningxi didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the youngster's straightforward words. Sis, how did you get here? Tang Nua asked. I walked here. It's not far. That's tiring. Sit down and rest. Tang Nua hurried over to help her. Ningxi waved her hand carelessly. I'm not that weak. My agent was exaggerating in the video you saw at the press conference. In fact, a friend of mine gave me a special medicine and I recovered very quickly. At least now I have no problems with daily life. Really? That's great. Let's go for a walk on the field? Okay. The youngster was relieved. The night breeze was a little chilly. Tang Nua thoughtfully draped his school uniform jacket over Ningxi. Sis, don't catch a cold. Ningxi adjusted the jacket, her face full of warmth. Thank you, good girl, they chatted as they walked. Ningxi asked concernedly, are you used to living in the capital? Tang Nua was silent for a while and then said, at first, I wasn't used to it. After all, it's a small place. When I was there, the whole village was proud of me. But when I came here, I realized that I'm actually nothing. This feeling of difference is really hard to bear. The youngster's expression was a little gloomy, but he quickly recovered. But it was only at the beginning. Then I slowly got used to it. Now I'm getting along well with everyone. The youngster only said a few words, but it could be imagined that he must have gone through all kinds of twists and turns. After Tang Nua finished speaking, he looked at the girl beside him with a slightly gloomy expression. Sister, that year, when you left home to come here, it must have been the same. Ningxi sighed and looked up at the night sky. She didn't want to hide anything in front of Tang Nua. She said slowly, yes, every day I miss home. I want to go back, but I can't, since I've made my choice. I can't go back. Hearing the girl's words, Tang Nua clenched his fists tightly. Other than feeling heartache, he didn't know what else to say. Unfortunately, he was too young at that time and couldn't do anything. Sis, do you still blame Su Yan? Tang Nua asked. Ningxi tilted her head and looked at the boy who looked distressed. Her eyes glittered with bright starlight. Resentment? I should thank him. If it wasn't for him, how could I have met that person? When the girl said this, her face was full of warmth without the slightest haze. Tang Nua was also infected by the girl's emotions. Sis, are you talking about your boyfriend? Ningxi corrected her with a smile. He's not your boyfriend. He's your brother-in-law. We're already married. Hearing this, Tang Nua was immediately surprised and said happily, really? Probably because of his experience with Su Yan, he had been worried that the man was not sincere to him. Maybe he just liked his sister's beauty and wanted to play with her. Unexpectedly, they were already married. Chapter 1891. Yes, I'm married and I'm very happy. Are you relieved now, little Tang monk? Ningxi chuckled helplessly. Tang Nua nodded his head repeatedly, and the weight in his heart was finally lifted. But because of my profession, the wedding hasn't been held yet. I'll invite you to come and I'll ask you to carry me out on your back. Of course, I'll carry you. Tang Nua looked excited. The sister and brother chatted happily all the way around the sports ground. As they were talking, a sudden voice came from behind. Xiaoxi? The sister and brother turned around subconsciously. Behind her, a man in a suit was standing there. The man was travel-worn and looked a little disheveled. His face was full of exhaustion, and he stared at Ningxi without shifting his gaze away. Seeing Su Yan suddenly appear here, Ningxi frowned and her face darkened. Tang Nua looked at Ningxi and then at Su Yan. He suddenly realized something and said anxiously, Sister, it's not me. I don't know why he is here. Before Ningxi could speak, Su Yan replied, I waited here on purpose because I really don't know how to see you. Su Yan had been contacting her frequently since she was in a coma. She didn't expect that after she woke up, he still didn't give up and even used Tang Nua. What's the matter? Ningxi asked. Can I talk to you alone? Su Yan said and looked at Tang Nua. Sister. Tang Nua looked at Ningxi awkwardly. Ningxi obviously didn't want to see Su Yan, but now they met because of him. He didn't know that after Su Yan called him, he knew that he would ask Ningxi to meet him, so he was waiting here. Ningxi looked at the apologetic Tang Nua and her face softened a little. She comforted him. Xiao Nua, it's not your fault. Wait for me here. Tang Nua could only nod obediently. With that, Ningxi walked straight to the stand. Su Yan breathed a sigh of relief and hurried to catch up with the girl in front of him. Tang Nua stood below, looking at the two of them worriedly. He was ready to rush over at any moment if anything happened. At this moment, there were only Ningxi and Su Yan on the stand. Ningxi didn't waste time and said directly, Go ahead. The words that he had been holding back in his heart for more than a year, but now that he was finally standing in front of the girl, he suddenly didn't know what to say. The girl was wearing the uniform of Capital University and had her hair tied up in a ponytail. Because she didn't have any makeup on, she looked even more tender than usual. Even in such a night, her skin was still tender and delicate. He was suddenly brought back to his youth and the person in front of him overlapped with the girl in his memory. His girl? Su Yan didn't speak and Ningxi didn't speak either. She just stood there quietly. The man's fingers were clenched into fists by his sides, trembling slightly because he was too nervous. And Ningxi's expression gradually became a little impatient. After a long time, Su Yan finally said, Xiaoxi we. Ningxi looked up at the man who didn't say anything. Being stared at by the girl, Su Yan felt as if all the blood in his body was about to boil and flow in reverse. Finally, the remaining words rushed out of his throat. Let's start over, okay? Chapter 1892. Hearing this, Ning Shi's expressionless face finally changed for a moment. She almost thought she had heard it wrong. Start over? She couldn't understand this man's thinking. After so many things had happened and he and Ning Xuelua had been married for a year, how could he say such a thing to her? The girl's gaze made Su Yan's heart go cold. The man said in a dry voice, Xiaoxi, I know what I said may sound ridiculous to you, isn't it? You heard that Su Yan took a deep breath. I've thought about it for a long time. This isn't something I said to you on impulse. I really regret it, and I finally understand who I truly like, who I truly love. Ning Shi looked at the man in front of her, the man who held the best feelings of her youth, the man who had once made her feel heartbroken. Listening to him finally speak to her, she regretted it. Listening to him say that the person he really loved was her. There was not a trace of feeling in her heart. If there was, it was only a complete chill. Xiaoxi, what happened that year, it was my fault. I was the one who betrayed our relationship. But in the beginning I really didn't want to leave you, until I met Xueluo. Xueluo's temperament was too pure and weak, and also suddenly met with such an unforeseen event. She often complained to me. I also don't know when it started, this kind of feeling changed. Su Yan's expression was filled with pain and vexation. Ning Shi's heart was clear. Yes, everything was her fault. She didn't have Ning Xuelua's ability to act pitiful, cry, and satisfy his protective desire as a man. Her fault was that she had always reported the good news and not the bad news, for fear that he would worry about her. Her fault was that even if she had been ostracized and isolated, she had never said a word to him. Until later. I impulsively slept with Xueluo. It was Xueluo's first time. I'm a man. I can't not be responsible for her. I have been hiding it from you, because I really don't know how to face you. Responsible? When he was responsible for a third party, did he think of her as his girlfriend? Ning Xuelua's first time was precious, but she was an unclean person who had lost her virginity and was pregnant with a bastard. How could she be worthy of the noble young master of the Su family? But it wasn't until later on that I understood. All along I had been worried about Xueluo, but I never thought about your feelings. You left your hometown for me, but in the end I left you all alone. After you met with that incident, you were sent overseas by yourself. Then, when you returned to the entertainment industry, you went on to make a living on your own. Actually, I've always wanted to help you and make it up to you, but you're just too stubborn. Su Yan stared at the girl in front of him. You disappeared for a whole year, and I also thought about it for a whole year until you reappeared. After a moment of silence, Su Yan took a deep breath and continued, Xiaoxi, I've been deceiving myself for too long. I don't want to continue deceiving myself. I don't want to lie to myself for the rest of my life. Ning Shi sneered. So, I know that I don't have the right to say such things to you in my current situation, and I have absolutely no intention of insulting you. I will regain my freedom. Chapter 1893. Regain her freedom? Ning Shi couldn't believe it. He loved Ning Xueluo so much that even though he knew what she had done to him back then, he could easily forgive her just because she cried and apologized. But now the man in front of her was telling her that he regretted it and wanted to divorce Ning Xueluo? Ning Shi couldn't tell how she felt at the moment. After a long while, Ning Shi said coldly, Su Yan, some things are like a cotton-padded jacket in summer and a cattail leaf fan in winter. And when a person is disheartened, he will change his mind. Su Yan's pupils suddenly shrank. Xiaoxi, I know you hate me, but I also know that it's because you love me. I know it's too late now, but Xiaoxi, believe me, everything I said just now is true and I will definitely do it. I will marry you and I will take care of everything. You will still be Mrs. Su. Everything between us will start over again. Hearing that Su Yan was so sure that she would come back to him as long as he divorced her, Ning Shi chuckled and didn't say anything more. She also couldn't figure out who gave this person in front of her such confidence. She had been with him for so many years. Why did he think that she would always wait for him? Xiaoxi, wait for me. Su Yan said and turned to leave. Ning Shi glanced at the man's back in the dark and didn't do anything. She certainly wouldn't stop him. She wanted to see if Su Yan would really divorce her and what Ning Xuelua's expression would be if he did. After Su Yan left, Tang Nua hurriedly ran over and asked worriedly, Sister, are you okay? What did he say to you? Nothing, just a bunch of nonsense. Let's go, Ning Shi said carelessly. Seeing Ning Shi's pale face, Tang Nua blamed himself. Sister, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Actually, it was Su Yan who called me and I knew you were back, so I asked you to meet me. I didn't expect that he did it on purpose. Well, someone used you shamelessly. It has nothing to do with you. Don't blame yourself. Ningxi was talking to Tang Nuo when her phone suddenly rang. Ningxi looked at the sweetheart on the caller ID and her eyes softened. She smiled and answered the call. "Hello, honey?" Hearing Ningxi calling him honey, in a soft and sweet voice, Lu Tingxiao felt as if he was wrapped in a ball of honey. His deep voice revealed the owner's happy mood. "Well, are you done? I'll pick you up." "I'm done. Have you finished your meeting?" Ningxi asked. "It's just finished. There's still some work left. Very soon. Then don't rush over. I'll go find you." "Wait for me," Ningxi said considerately. "Okay." He naturally wouldn't refuse his wife's visit. "Is it brother-in-law? Is it brother-in-law?" Tang Nuo's eyes lit up as he asked. "Yes, I'm going to the company to find him." "Go back to your dormitory." Ningxi chuckled. "Okay, sister, be careful on the way back. Say hello to brother-in-law for me." When Tang Nuo saw that Ningxi answered the phone call from her brother-in-law, the indifference and gloom on his face disappeared, and his tense mood also relaxed at once. Fortunately, such a person had appeared. He could make his sister forget the past and start over. Chapter 1894. Lu Group. When Cheng Feng heard that the lady boss was coming, he hurriedly went down to welcome her. Ningxi followed Cheng Feng and took the elevator to the top floor. After bringing Ningxi to the office, Cheng Feng immediately left, but before leaving he couldn't help but take another look at Ningxi. "Sweetheart, I'm coming." As soon as the door behind her closed, Ningxi immediately took off her mask and happily bounced towards Lu Tingxiao. "Coming?" Hearing the girl's voice, Lu Tingxiao, who was dealing with official business, subconsciously raised his head from a pile of contract documents. In the next second, when he saw the girl in front of him clearly, his expression suddenly froze, and his cold eyes instantly darkened. Ningxi was actually wearing a school uniform. If he wasn't mistaken, it should be the female school uniform of the capital university. Previously, Lu Jingli had shown him a magazine album and said that he wanted to use it as a reference for the company's employee uniform, but he rejected it, so he had some impression of it. At this moment, the girl was wearing a uniform short skirt, with a refreshing ponytail. She didn't have any makeup on her face, but her eyebrows were like a distant black, her lips were like cherry blossoms, and her skin was even more delicate. She stood there charmingly, and it was impossible to tell that she was an artist who had been in the entertainment industry for so long. She was completely a naive and romantic university student. "Sweetheart, I want a hug." Ningxi had just been disgusted by a certain scum. At this moment, seeing Lu Tingxiao was like seeing a clear spring. She immediately went around the desk and rubbed herself against him. When Lu Tingxiao reacted, he had already hugged the girl. Ningxi sat on the man's lap, nestled in his embrace that was full of fresh and safe air, and rubbed her small head on the man's chin. The man carefully hugged the warm, fragrant, soft, jade-like girl in his arms, and gently stroked the girl's small head. His voice was somewhat hoarse. "Why are you dressed like this?" Only then did Ningxi remember that she was still wearing the school uniform. She immediately scratched her head in realization. "Ah. Because I just went to the capital university to see Xiao Nuo, so I asked Su Tao to find me some inconspicuous clothes. In the end, I don't know where he found a school uniform for me. No wonder when she came over just now, Cheng Feng and a few other employees looked at her with strange expressions. Oh, did they think she was playing uniform seduction with Lu Tingxiao? How tragic, she really didn't do it on purpose. But, of course, it could be done on purpose." The girl's quick-witted eyes turned and she immediately bent her eyebrows and moved closer. "Sweetheart, do I look good in this?" The man's eyes darkened. "You look good." A smug look appeared on the girl's face. "Hee, I wasn't bragging before. You've really gotten yourself a treasure by marrying me. I wasn't just trying to coax you when I said I wanted you to feel like you're getting a new wife every day." The girl hummed proudly as she wriggled around on his body. Lu Tingxiao frowned and said, "Be a good girl. Go sit on the sofa for a while. I'll take care of the rest of the things." Ningxi's face fell. "No, I'll sit here. Will you handle it?" Lu Tingxiao, "No." Ningxi felt even more wronged. "Then I won't disturb you. I won't talk anymore, okay?" Looking at the clingy little wife in his arms, Lu Tingxiao helplessly pinched the space between his eyebrows. After a while he sighed, held the girl's hand and pressed it down on a certain part of his body. Ningxi blinked, not knowing why she was being led. The next second she felt the hardness and heat in her palm, and her eyes immediately widened. Lu Tingxiao kissed the girl's neck and said in an extremely hoarse voice, "I'll be distracted." Chapter 1895. Why was she distracted? Ning she expressed her innocence. She hadn't done anything just now, had she? She had only spoken a few words to him. However, she was still very happy that she had managed to flirt with the devil so easily. Ning she raised her little head and looked at the man's obviously forbearing expression. She blinked and said, "Well, sweetheart, actually, my body has almost recovered. Annie has been prescribing medicine for me and Mom has been making tonic soup for me every day, so you don't have to be patient," the girl said as she raised her chin and kissed the man's cold and thin lips. After hearing the girl's hint, Lu Tingxiao's body suddenly stiffened and he remained motionless. A moment later, the big hand on the girl's waist suddenly tightened. The man held the back of her head and kissed her hard. The space on the chair was too narrow, so Ningxi's waist was forced to lean against the desk behind her. She felt a little uncomfortable from being kissed, so she hummed. The next second, her body suddenly flew up and she was placed on the wide and soft sofa in the office. Ningxi lay on the sofa and looked at the man who was suspended in front of her. Her usually cold and lusterless eyes were now filled with incomparable heat. Her frozen face was stained with desire, making it 100 times more attractive and sexier than usual. At the thought that the man's passion was all because of her, this thought filled her heart with even more satisfaction. Seeing that the man leaned over and was about to kiss her again, Ningxi deliberately reached out to stop his kiss and smiled. "Well, didn't you say you had something to deal with? Is it okay?" The man's Adam's apple moved up and down. He held the girl's hand and gently kissed the girl's palm. "I've already dealt with it." Ningxi felt the itchy heat in her palm and a numbness ran from the soles of her feet to her nerve endings. "Okay, so you lied to me just now. Are you sure your body is okay?" Ningxi chuckled. "It's really okay. Let me tell you, even if I go up the mountain to fight a tiger, I'll be fine. Not to mention." With that, Ningxi paused. Then she suddenly turned around and pounced on the man in front of her. She then said softly, "Not to mention, pouncing on you." The moment Ningxi's voice fell, there seemed to be something in the man's eyes. He suddenly broke out of the cage and turned into a raging flame, engulfing her. His slender fingers reached into her collar and unbuttoned her uniform one by one. Drip. The man's sweat dripped onto the girl's skin, the belt buckle was unfastened, and at the same time, the zipper of Ningxi's skirt was also unfastened. At this moment, Lu Tingxiao's breathing was already chaotic, and his honey-colored skin was covered in sweat. "If you feel uncomfortable, tell me." Ningxi's mind was in a mess. In fact, she didn't hear what the man was saying at all. She just nodded subconsciously. Ah. The next second, that thing roared into her body with terrible force, and Ningxi curled up like a shrimp. Chapter 1896. Feeling the girl's body tense up, the man stopped what he was doing. Such a pause was simply torture to him. Uncomfortable? Ningxi almost couldn't speak. What? Why did it still hurt so much even though it wasn't the first time, boss? Are you sure? Is your size normal? Seeing that Lu Tingxiao was still worried about her even at such a time, Ningxi's tensed body unknowingly softened. She smiled and rubbed the man's neck. "I'm fine." The girl's gentle tone and expression completely broke the man's last shred of self-control. In the spacious office, only the sweet and ambiguous melody was left. At this time, Ningxi's phone suddenly rang in her bag. Ningxi's dazed mind regained a bit of clarity. Phone? However, before she could finish her sentence, she had already lost all ability to think due to the Demon King's increasingly intense movements. She could only float along with him. Later on, Ningxi finally realized how naive and ignorant she had been. She had miscalculated. How could a tiger be as ferocious as her boss? She had even shamelessly said that there was definitely something wrong with her body. But the problem was, even if her body was perfectly fine, she might not be able to withstand the Demon King's demands. She was suddenly a little worried about her future. At the same time in Deer Town, baby Xiao Bao stood up immediately. "I'm going to look for mommy." The little fellow finally panicked when he couldn't get through to Ningxi's phone. Just then Lu Jingli called Lu Tingxiao, but he also couldn't get through. If it was only Ningxi or Lu Tingxiao who couldn't get through, he might have been worried. But both of them couldn't get through at the same time, so... Thinking of this, Lu Jingli's expression suddenly became meaningful. He said hesitantly, wait, baby. Trust me, your mother is fine." But mommy wouldn't ignore Xiao Bao's call. Xiao Bao's face was stiff. "There must be something she can't get away from," Lu Jingli explained. He suddenly had an ominous feeling. The dog food this time was probably enough to fill him to death. That's impossible. No matter what happens, Mom will never refuse to answer Xiaobao's call. Xiaobao's tone was firm. Lu Jingli shook his head sympathetically. He thought to himself, "Darling, you really do have it, and I'm afraid you'll be abused many times in the future, and this is just the beginning. Don't worry, I'll make another call and ask." As Lu Jingli spoke, he called Ching Feng. "Hello, Special Assistant Ching, have you seen my sister-in-law?" Lu Jingli asked directly. "I saw it. The lady boss just came to the company," Ching Feng answered truthfully. "Where is she now?" "I'm not sure about that. I've already gotten off work, but when I left, the boss and the lady boss hadn't left yet." Ching Feng thought for a long time. Finally, he coughed lightly and hesitantly added, "Cough, second young master, if you don't have anything urgent, it's better not to disturb me now." As expected, this young master is really smart. "Alright, I understand." Lu Jingli hung up the phone. "Alright, you don't have to worry anymore." However, Xiaobao sighed. Lu Jingli held back his tears from eating too much. He resigned himself to his fate and helped coax the child for a long time. Finally, Xiaobao was appeased. Forget it, it wasn't easy for his brother to endure for so long. This time he wouldn't care about the dog food. Chapter 1897. Late at night, Su Mansion. After Su Yin left Imperial City University, he returned home without a moment's delay. In the living room, Zheng Minjun had just finished a call with a lady she was close to and was about to sleep when she heard the sound of a car engine at the door followed by footsteps. Her son had returned from a business trip for many days. Seeing her son return, Zheng Minjun's face instantly lit up. "Su Yin is back. Why are you so late? Weren't you supposed to be home yesterday?" Su Yin did not answer. "Where are Dad and Shui Luo?" "Your dad is upstairs in the study. Shui Luo seems to have a dinner party tonight. She's not back yet." Su Yin nodded slightly and then walked upstairs. "I'm going to find Dad, I have something to discuss with him." Zheng Minjun had been asking around about Ningxi and the Zhuang family for the past 2 days. Now that Su Yin had finally returned, she wanted to ask her son's opinion first. However, seeing that Su Yin was in a hurry, it seemed like there was something urgent. She could only put it aside for now. "Okay, go quickly." In the study. Under the desk lamp, Su Hongguang was looking at a land auction with a serious expression. This land was very important to them, but without the internal connections of the higher-ups, it was almost impossible to compete with the other two companies. This was how it was in this circle. Sometimes, it was as difficult as ascending to heaven without that bit of connections. Su Hongguang's eyes darkened. He could not help but recall what his wife had said that day. After all, Su Yan and Shui Luo had been married for so long. The Su and Ning families were now inseparable. Divorce would affect everything, so he told Zheng Minjun not to be impulsive. However, at this moment, if Su Yan could marry Ningxi, it would bring great benefits. No matter how determined he was, it was enough to sway him. If he could really unite with the Zhuang family through marriage, then all the trouble that would come with divorce would be a small problem. Su Hongguang was lost in thought when he suddenly heard his son's familiar voice. "Father." Su Hongguang snapped out of his thoughts and looked up at his son. "You're back." Su Yan nodded. His expression looked a little different than usual. "Father, I have something to discuss with you." Seeing Su Yan's unusual expression, Su Hongguang straightened his face. "Have a seat. It's already so late. What's the matter?" Su Yan didn't sit down. Instead, he stood in front of the desk with his back straight. He seemed to have made up his mind. He looked at Su Hongguang with certainty and said word by word, "Father, I'm going to divorce Shui Luo." The moment he finished speaking, Su Hongguang's expression changed due to shock. At the same time, a dark light flashed across his eyes. Su Hongguang suppressed the messy thoughts in his mind and looked at his son with an extremely serious expression. "Do you know what you're saying?" "Father, I know that you and Mother will definitely object and you will definitely not understand my impulsive and unreasonable behavior, but this matter, I definitely did not do it on a whim. I have been thinking about it for an entire year. I've made up my mind." Su Yan's tone was very firm. Rather than discussing it with him, it would be more accurate to say that she had come to inform him. If Su Hongguang hadn't known Ningxi's identity, he would have been furious to hear Su Yan talk about divorce. But, so everything was a little different. Chapter 1898. So, although Su Hongguang's expression was solemn, he also felt relieved. You have to give a reason for such a big thing. But what did Shui Luo do wrong? Su Yan clenched his fists. No, it's not that Shui Luo did anything wrong. It's my fault. I owe someone too much. Su Hongguang's eyes instantly lit up. One person? Don't tell me you're talking about that girl Ningxi? Su Yan nodded. Father, you know what happened between me and Ningxi. No matter what, I betrayed her first. She suffered so much alone. I just found out that we all misunderstood her this year. She wasn't as dirty as the rumors say. She was a kept woman. She got into a car accident and fell into a deep coma. She was bedridden for a whole year. So that was it. In fact, Su Hongguang had already seen through his son's thoughts. After all, he was a man and understood a man's thoughts. No man would be able to resist a woman like Ningxi. In the past, he didn't think much of Ningxi's devotion to his son. But now that she suddenly ignored him and looked so stunning, it naturally attracted his son's attention. Plus, the fact that Ningxi had disappeared for a year triggered his son's pity and regret. He could understand why his son suddenly asked for a divorce. I already know what happened to Ningxi, Su Hongguang said. Father, you know about it too? Su Hongguang didn't pay much attention to the entertainment industry, so Su Yan was surprised. A glint flashed across Su Hongguang's eyes. As he observed his son's expression, he said, Ningxi is the Zhuang family's acknowledged niece. She has a high status. How could she do such a thing as the rumors say? Hearing this, Su Yan was slightly surprised. Father, you mean the Zhuang family has recognized Ningxi? That's right. Su Hongguang nodded. And your mother saw it with her own eyes at Minister Li's wife's private party. Meng Linlang brought her along and introduced her to everyone. Su Yan pondered. I guess the Zhuang family already knew about Ningxi's background when I married Xue Luo, but the Zhuang family has always been low-key, so no one knew. Yes, that must be the case. Su Hongguang said earnestly, back then your mother and I were kept in the dark by the Ning family. After all, we didn't know. With Ningxi's status and upbringing, there was no way she could enter the Su family. Now, since we know that she is not only the flesh and blood of the Ning family, but also the granddaughter of the Zhuang family, this identity is suitable for our Su family. Su Yan understood the meaning behind his father's words and was pleasantly surprised. So, father, you mean, you agree? Su Hongguang didn't answer directly but asked, how are you going to settle Xue Luo's side? She didn't do anything wrong and you suddenly want to divorce her, will Xue Luo be willing? Will the Ning family agree? Fault? Su Yan recalled what Xue Luo had done to Ningxi that year. Although he was unable to tell Su Hongguang the truth, his heart felt like it was being stabbed by needles. He didn't know why he had let her do that to Ningxi, but he still chose to forgive her. Chapter 1899. At that time his heart was filled with this weak girl. He was her sky, her earth, her only support and everything. She said that she did the wrong thing because she was too afraid of losing him. He was touched by her deep love and forgave her. He always thought that after the hospital exposed her identity, Xue Luo only had himself, so he tolerated her everything and protected her from harm. But the fact was that although her identity was exposed, Xue Luo was still the eldest daughter of the Ning family. She had a good family background and was loved by Ning Yaohua and Zhuang Lingyu. Even he betrayed Ningxi and stood on her side. On the contrary, Ningxi left her adoptive parents and was not accepted by her biological parents. In the end, it wasn't until time slowly woke him up that he finally understood how cruel everything he had done back then was to the other girl. It was not until he saw the girl working hard to shine that he realized that his feelings for her had never disappeared. Why did things become like this step by step? At the end of the day, it was because he was the eldest son of the Su family. Even though he had been recuperating in the countryside for many years, he was still proud. When he was lonely in the countryside, Ningxi's existence made him feel like a ray of warm light. However, as soon as he returned to the ostentatious capital, everything reminded him of his identity. Ningxi was incompatible with the upper class, so he gradually became sick of her and even began to escape from her. And at that time, Ning Xuelua, who was beautiful and talented and often showed kindness to him, appeared. She was a perfect match for him, so it was hard for him not to be moved. At the same time, because of his pride, even though he admired and pitied Ning Xuelua's real identity was still a thorn in his heart. Especially when Ning Xuelua's identity was exposed in public, and everyone in the circle had a tacit understanding. He was so proud, how could he stand those people who sympathized with him and took pleasure in his misfortune, gossiping in private that he had married a wild chicken? Now all he did was return everything to the right track. Su Yan's wife should be the real daughter of a rich family. She should be noble. So now, even if he had to sacrifice everything, he wanted to make it up to her. He wanted to make it up to the girl who had waited for him for so long and loved him so deeply. He even wanted to fly to her side and tell her that he had regained his freedom. He couldn't wait to see a smile and a loving expression on the girl's cold and mocking face again. Thinking of this, Su Yan's gaze became even more resolute. I will deal with Shui Luo's side, but as for the Ning family, I will have to trouble father and mother to coordinate. At this moment, various interests flashed through Su Hongguang's mind. In fact, he was almost completely convinced. He slowly said, "If you've really made up your mind, your mother and I can only do this. If everything went well, as long as the relationship between Su Yan and Ningxi was confirmed, they might even have time to buy that piece of land. There was no need to mention the various conveniences in the future." As for Ningxi, Su Hongguang seemed to be extremely at ease and didn't ask anything. That girl had always loved his son to death. Now that his son had divorced for her and was willing to marry her again, how could she not be willing? Chapter 1900. Su Hongguang's mind was racing, but he didn't know that all his plans were just a joke. Lu Group CEO's office. The girl had been carried to the soft bed in the lounge by the man. On the bedside table, the flower petals in the vase trembled and fell. The girl's school uniform had already been completely taken off. Her porcelain white skin was steaming with sweet heat, even redder than the petals of a flower. Her body swayed along with the man's movements like a ball of soft jade, forming a sharp contrast with the hard and hot body in front of him. There was no rejection, no fear, no panic. There was no shadow or distracting thoughts. Only wholeheartedly, a feeling similar to satisfaction filled her heart. It turned out that this was the feeling between a man and a woman, beautiful and pure. After all, Lu Tingxiao had endured for too long. He had always been afraid of hurting the girl, but when he really did it with her, the words restraint and control were tantamount to torture for him. However, Lu Tingxiao seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed all of a sudden, and he immediately stopped moving. Ningxi's messy hair stuck to her temples. Looking at the man's expression that was almost breaking down, she said in a hoarse voice, "What's wrong?" The girl's soft voice and glistening eyes were simply adding insult to injury. At this moment, Lu Tingxiao's body was as taut as a bow, and his forehead was covered with a thin layer of sweat. "I don't have, huh? Don't have what?" Ningxi was startled, but she quickly reacted. She smiled slightly and put her soft arms around the man's neck. "Oh, sweetheart, do you mean condoms?" Lu Tingxiao's face was extremely dark and he nodded. "Yes." Ningxi rubbed against the man's neck. "It's okay, it's a safe period." As Ningxi spoke, her bright eyes gazed into the man's eyes attentively. She said, "Actually, sweetheart, I really want to give you a child." Hearing that the girl actually said that she wanted to give birth to his child, the man's pupils abruptly contracted almost at the instant the girl's voice fell. He only felt a sudden electric current running through his back and then, it actually came out just like that. "Damn it!" Lu Tingxiao cursed in a low voice. The burning heat in her body made Ningxi's body tremble violently. Feeling the man's remorse, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Come on, Sir Boss, it's almost daybreak now. Even my strong body can't bear it. How much longer do you want?" Lu Tingxiao didn't immediately withdraw, but held the girl tightly. "Xiaoxi, are you sure? Are you really willing?" He had been worried about the trauma caused by what had happened in the past, so he never thought that she would be willing to be pregnant again, so he never mentioned it to her. Ningxi's expression didn't change at all. She smiled and said, "Of course I'm sure. Come on, we're already married." "Is there anything wrong with me giving birth to your child?" After saying that, Ningxi seemed to have thought of something and a trace of worry flashed across her little face. "But I'm worried that Xiaobao won't like it. Actually, having Xiaobao is enough for me." She had suddenly said those words to Lu Tingxiao because she felt that the best way to express her feelings for him was to give birth to a child for him. Hearing the girl's words, Lu Tingxiao's eyes flickered and he said firmly, "Don't worry, Xiaoxi will like it, I promise." Chapter 1901. It was already late at night when Ning Xuelua returned home from a social event. Ning Xuelua was overjoyed when she saw the familiar shoes of the man at the door. Su Yan was back. She pushed open the bedroom door and saw Su Yan standing on the balcony through the floor-to-ceiling window. "Brother Yan, you're back. I missed you so much." Su Yan's body stiffened when he felt the soft body behind him. He turned around and looked at the girl in front of him. "Are you done?" Ning Xuelua nodded and looked a little distressed. Recently, History and Starlight have been having a lot of problems, especially Starlight. Because of my sister's return, the promotional event for The World that we prepared for a long time was ruined and Zishuan has been having a lot of problems. Alright, Brother Yen, do you know? My sister is back. Su Yen nodded. I heard. Ning Xuelua's eyes dimmed. She guessed that Su Yen must have known the truth about Ning Shi's disappearance for a year. She said guiltily, I didn't expect such a big thing to happen to my sister this year. It's a pity that we didn't know and we couldn't help. Su Yen didn't reply. He just looked at the dark night sky not far away with an unfathomable expression. Ning Xuelua looked at Su Yan's expression and felt a strong sense of unease. At the same time, she couldn't help but recall that Su Yan was supposed to be back from his business trip yesterday, but he suddenly disappeared for a whole day. Where did he go between the time he arrived at the airport and the time he went home? Was he really at the company? He didn't even come back at night, but as far as she knew, the company hadn't been that busy recently. Because she had been too busy for the past 2 days, she hadn't paid much attention to his whereabouts. When she came back just now, she was going to call his assistant, but she saw that Su Yan was already back. What worried her the most was that. Did Su Yan already know about Ning Shi and the Zhuang family? After knowing Ning Shi's identity, would he be like Zheng Minjun? A year ago, she had already sensed that something was wrong with Su Yan. Because of Ning Shi's sudden disappearance, her worry was over before it even began. But now Ning Shi was back. The more Ning Xuelua thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Damn it, how could she have forgotten such an important thing and neglected Su Yan's side? Even 10 companies were not as important as her capturing Su Yan and the Su family. Including when it came to dealing with Zheng Minjun, the reason why she had remained calm until now was because she was most confident in Su Yan. No matter how much Zheng Minjun disliked her, as long as Su Yan stood on her side, then Zheng Minjun could not do anything to her. Even if Su Hongguang personally came forward, it would be useless. But now, looking at the man in front of her, who had always been in her control, she suddenly had no confidence. Even the way he looked at her at this moment gave her an extremely unfamiliar feeling. Since when did this man, who was so obedient and loyal to her, start to look at her with eyes that were no longer as hot and warm as before? If his heart wasn't with her, then where did it go? Ning Xueluo's eyes flashed with a hint of viciousness. In the next second, her eyes immediately reddened and became misty. As if she had been greatly wronged, she threw herself into Su Yan's arms. Big Brother Yan? What should I do? I'm so scared. Looking at the girl's extremely panicked expression, Su Yan held back the words that he was about to blurt out. What's wrong? What happened? Chapter 1902. Brother Yan, will you not want me any more? The girl raised her head and asked in tears. When Su Yan heard this, his heart skipped a beat, probably due to his guilty conscience. He forced himself to remain silent. Su Yan's reaction made Ning Xuelua feel like a bucket of cold water had been poured on her head. She clenched her nails into her palms. Su Yan, you really had such a thought? Ning Xuelua's heart was filled with gloom, and she looked even more aggrieved. Brother Yan, do you know? No matter how hard I try, Grandpa will never look at me. He even thinks that I have ulterior motives. But I really just want to resolve the conflict between Grandpa and Mother. I know you mean well. Su Yan said absent-mindedly. I don't know what I did wrong. Maybe it's because Grandpa and Mother had a deep conflict and I've always been closer to Mother, so Grandpa didn't care about me, but he recognized Ning Shi. Ning Xuelua's face was full of sadness when she said this. Su Yan patted the girl's shoulder. It has nothing to do with you. Maybe, because Ning Shi has the Zhuang family's blood in her. Ning Xuelua's face turned pale when she heard that. She smiled bitterly and said, that's right. Bloodline. You're my biological sister after all. I'm nothing. Even Grandpa only recognizes you now. I know. I'm not worthy. But I'm scared. I'm really scared, Brother Yan. You know, Mother was very dissatisfied with me because of my identity. I've worked very hard for more than a year. Only then did she become satisfied with me. But ever since she saw Auntie bringing Ningxi to Mrs. Li's private party, she started to treat me differently. I'm really scared. I'm scared that Mother will hate me and force me to leave you. Ning Xuelua was sobbing when she said this. She didn't mention a word about Su Yan's change of heart. She still believed that Su Yan loved her and was worried that they would be separated by their mother. The girl didn't doubt him at all, and she panicked because she was worried about being separated from him. Even though it took her a whole year to make up her mind, even though she had talked to her father just now, at this moment, Su Yan still hesitated. No matter what, he couldn't bring himself to say the words that he had prepared to say. Su Yan frowned, but in the end he only said one sentence: "Don't let your imagination run wild. The Ning family's background and how the Zhuang family treats her have nothing to do with you." In the first place, he didn't decide to divorce because of this. It was just that this fact, to a certain extent, strengthened his thoughts. But even if there was no such reason, he would still make this decision. Ning Xuelua leaned into Su Yan's embrace and cried, "Brother Yan, I'm really tired. Really tired. But as long as I know that I can be with you, as long as I know that you love me, I can endure anything. I'll gladly endure anything." Su Yan's expression became even more stiff, his originally firm heart started to waver. Indeed, Shui Luo had sacrificed a lot for him, however, his feelings were different from before. He could not bear to part with Ning Xuelua, but he did not feel the slightest bit of reluctance. His heart was filled with annoyance when he saw Ning Xuelua's expression. At this moment, a dazzling face flashed across his mind. The strong desire to obtain that person's body immediately calmed the man's chaotic emotions due to Ning Xuelua's crying. Chapter 1903. Looking at the woman crying in his arms, Su Yan didn't immediately say what he was going to say, but he was more determined. The man patted the woman in his arms, and a dark light flashed across his eyes. "Shulua, I know you've done a lot to be with me and you've suffered a lot. But the biggest victim and the most innocent person is Ning Shi. You even did that to her." Ning Shuelua's body suddenly stiffened. This was her Achilles heel. Damn it, if Su Yan hadn't found out about those two good-for-nothings, she wouldn't have been in so much trouble today. So that although this matter had severely frustrated Ning Shi, it was like a time bomb between her and Su Yan, so that she had always been at a disadvantage and in a passive position in the relationship between the three of them. Every time she saw Ning Shi, she had to pretend to be guilty and remorseful. That was enough. But she had to do this. If Su Yan found out that she did it on purpose, she would be doomed. Ning Shuelua burst into tears, and her face was full of self-blame and pain. "I know. I've always known. So I didn't fight with my sister for anything all these years. I can even return everything to her. I just hope that my sister can forgive me. But Brother Yen, you know that my sister misunderstands me too much. She's not willing to accept any compensation from me. What if she is willing? You're willing to do anything? You're willing to return everything to her?" Su Yen suddenly asked. Ning Shueluo was stunned by the question. She was speechless for a long time. Then she was filled with anger. Bitch. She had actually hooked up with Su Yen in secret? Otherwise, why would Su Yen say such a thing? What was he hinting at? Return everything to her? Return what to her? Su Yen. Dream on. Su Yen was her man, her husband, and she was the only Mrs. Su. This position would be hers and she would never give it up. Su Yen didn't look at Ning Shuelua's expression again, and directly changed the topic. "It's late. Go to sleep." He didn't mention it today because he wanted her to be mentally prepared. It wouldn't be too late to talk about it after he dealt with all the follow-up problems and drew up the divorce agreement, so as not to cause more trouble. Ning Shuelua did have some achievements in the business world and was praised by her peers, but she was just a woman after all. It was all thanks to the Ning family and the Su family. The Su family had invested a large amount of capital and shares in Ning Family International, History, and Starlight International. Starlight's shares were all directly transferred to her by him. After the divorce, as compensation, he could give all of these to her directly. He didn't want a single cent, so he wouldn't treat her unfairly. With these, she could live a good life. With Ning Yaohua and Zhuang's doting on her, she wouldn't have a hard life after the divorce. After Su Yen turned around and went to the bathroom, Su to say, Su. After being with Su Yen for so many years, how could she not guess Su Yan's thoughts? Su to Su. She Su he she he, Yen. Impossible. While Su Yen was taking a shower, Ning Shuelua took out an exquisite amber bottle from the box at the bottom of the cabinet. She then lit up the incense and poured the liquid in the bottle. In an instant, the room was filled with a faint sweet fragrance. Chapter 1904. That sweet fragrance seeped through the crack of the door and into the bathroom. Su Yen was taking a shower while thinking about how to deal with the aftermath of the divorce. When he thought of the shadow that appeared in his dreams every night, he thought that the girl would soon return to his side and belong to him completely. She would no longer be coveted by other men. The last trace of pity he had for Ning Shuelua disappeared. He just wanted to make up for his mistakes and the damage he had caused. The water flowed over his body, and before he knew it, his lower body had a reaction. At the same time, his mind was filled with the image of a girl. She was wearing a red dress and walking on the red carpet. She was like a dazzling sun. She was dressed in white and sang softly like a fairy. She was wearing a school uniform and her skin was as white as snow even in the dark. She was wearing a white dress and looked like she was singing softly. He imagined, touching her with his hands, kissing her. Su Yan's hand couldn't help but caress that place of his. At this moment, the door of the bathtub was suddenly opened from the outside. Then he saw a mist rising and Ning Xuelua stood behind him. Her fingers touched her belt and untied the knot, and her nightgown fell to the ground. Su Yan's eyes suddenly turned scarlet when he saw the scene in front of him. The body behind the mist gradually turned into Ning Shi's appearance. The next second, the woman's wrist was suddenly dragged over and pressed against the cold wall. Then the man used so much force that it was almost rough, and then he heard the sound of heavy breathing. Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi? In the middle of the night, Su Yan was lying on the bed unconscious. Ning Xuelua picked up the nightgown beside her and looked at her bruised body. Her mind was filled with the name that Su Yan had just said, and her face was as ferocious as a ghost. Su Yan slept with her less and less often. In order to get pregnant as soon as possible, she had to use some special methods. In the past year she only succeeded a few times because she used essential oil, but the worst result was that Su Yan had never called other women's names, but now he actually, that bitch who couldn't even keep an eye on her own man, a good-for-nothing, a broken shoe who was raped and had a bastard. What right did she have? After Su Yan fell asleep, Ning Xuelua's expression was extremely cold. She took out an old phone from a hidden safe and walked to the balcony on the top floor. Hello. After the phone was connected, the man's impatient voice came from the other end. Ning Xuelua didn't notice the man's tone and said in a shrill voice, "I want Ning Shi dead. Kill her for me. Now. Immediately. Now." After a short silence, a cold snort came from the other end of the phone. Miss Ning, please watch your tone. Do you think my Solomon is your family's errand company?" The man's fierce tone calmed Ning Xuelua down a little. She softened her tone and said, "You can pay however much you want. As long as that woman completely disappeared from this world. I don't want you to kidnap anyone or threaten anyone. It's too easy to fail if you act in secret. I can't wait a moment longer. I want her dead right now." The man's tone became even more impatient. "That woman is a public figure, and she has bodyguards by her side. It's so easy for you to assassinate her. Don't tell me you don't know the relationship between this woman and the Zhuang family? Last time you asked me to mess with Zhuang Rongguang, I was almost killed by you. Now you want me to kill Zhuang Zhongren's niece? Do you think I'm stupid?" Chapter 1905. Ning Xuelua's face darkened when she heard what the man said. At the same time, her heart was filled with disdain. "Useless thing. You don't even dare to kill someone. How dare you call yourself the leader of a branch? I've been busy recently. Don't bother me with these things all day long." The man hung up the phone. Ning Xuelua looked at the phone that was hung up. She was so angry that she almost broke her teeth. Damn it. If it wasn't for the fact that it was too risky to find someone from within the country, she wouldn't have to go through so much trouble and rely on a force that she couldn't control. She had done so many things for them in private, but they dropped the ball at such a critical moment. However, they had each other's secrets, so she couldn't do anything to him. She failed when she asked him to threaten the assistant to change the gun last time. This time she was directly rejected. That damn bitch, why is she so stubborn? Su Yan was obviously determined this time. He might have even joined forces with Su Hongguang and Zheng Minjun. Since she couldn't get rid of Ning Shi immediately, it was almost certain that Su Yan would ask for a divorce. She knew how important the Su family was to her. Her history and Starlight, especially her position in Ning Family International, were all closely related to the Su family. How could she allow that bitch Ning Shi to take back everything that she had? "Bitch, you want to fight with me and divorce Su Yan? Do you think it's that easy?" Ning Xuelua lowered her head with a gloomy expression. She touched her lower abdomen. It seemed like there was only one way. A few days later, the Entertainment Light Leaderboard was officially launched. Apart from the entertainment industry, there were a few other leaderboards that were not limited to the entertainment industry. For example, one of them was the man that all Chinese women want to marry. Although most of the celebrities in the entertainment industry were male, people from other circles could also be on the list. For example, The person who was always at the top of the leaderboard with a crushing number of votes every year was Lu Tingxiao. No matter how the other leaderboards changed, no matter how much blood was shed, Lu Tingxiao's ranking had never changed. Every time on the first day of the voting, his votes would start to rise at a terrifying speed, and then he would look down on everyone. Ningxi laid on the bed with her head propped up. She flipped through the current ranking with her fingers. She couldn't help but click her tongue when she saw her sweetheart's #1 ranking. These girls were simply too scary. Oh, if they knew that the man they wanted to marry the most was already with her? What are you looking at? Lu Tingxiao sat on the chair beside the bed, maintaining a distance that was neither too far nor too close. After the last time, he almost couldn't stand her appearing within 3 steps of him. Just the touch could make him have a reaction, but considering her body condition, he hadn't touched her for the past few days. Ningxi sat up and leaned over to show him the phone. Sweetheart, look, you're first again this year. What's this? Lu Tingxiao glanced at it. Don't you know? The most famous list in the industry. Every year, you are ranked #1 on the list of men that women want to marry the most. Ningxi said with a stressed expression. Fuck, I have too many rivals in love. When Ningxi said this, she didn't expect that she would slap herself in the face soon after. No one had as many love rivals as Lu Tingxiao did. Chapter 1906. Su Tao also attached great importance to this year's entertainment light list. He had already made a series of plans for Ningxi to canvass votes. What was rare was that Jiang Mai was so attentive this time. In the past he always found it troublesome. Lei Ming had to beg for his cooperation. But this time he took the initiative. Not only did he cooperate with Jiang Mai, but he also agreed to hold a fan meeting. He even posted on Weibo that if he got the #1 spot on all 3 lists, he would give his fans a nude photo. Although Jiang Mai was a playboy, he never took big pictures. Usually when he posted photos he would at most show his abdominal muscles. It was really a great benefit for him to take a nude photo with Jiang Mai. The fans were so excited that as soon as the voting began, Jiang Mai had already started to dominate the rankings. The 3 lists that Jiang Mai referred to were the most popular male actor in the entertainment circle, which everyone fought for every year. There were 2 other lists, most handsome male actor in the entertainment circle, and most wanted to sleep with male actor in the entertainment circle. He also wanted the most wanted to marry female actor, but his uncle was above him. Plus, with his usual image, girls wanted to sleep with him more, so he didn't think about it. In the past, because the fans had limited votes, each person only had 2 votes. Therefore, Lei Ming would only protect the most important list. But this year, Jiang Mai decided to dominate the list after being provoked by Xing Hui. It was rare for Jiang Mai to be so ambitious and energetic. Lei Ming couldn't ask for more. He had been so busy these 2 days. At the fan meeting, Jiang Mai changed his iconic messy blonde hair. He cut his hair short and washed it back to its original dark brown color. He was wearing a simple black suit. The tailored design wrapped around his thin waist. The carefree look between his eyebrows turned into a calm and restrained light. This was the first time Jiang Mai showed up since he left angrily at the signing ceremony of The World. Thousands of fans who loved him were waiting for him. When they saw such a new idol appear in front of them, all the fans were excited. Ah, my, oh my God. He's so handsome. I've never seen my like this. He's handsome to a new height. Mom, I'm in love again. In the end, the effect was unexpectedly good. Not only did the votes on those 3 lists increase rapidly, but even the votes on the Wanna Marry Most list increased by a lot. On Starlight's side, there were a few young stars who had been in the limelight recently, but their rankings had all fallen by a large margin. Starlight probably knew that they couldn't suppress Jiang Mai anymore, so they tried their best to protect one of them. They threw all their votes to the most popular one, but even so, they still couldn't catch up with Jiang Mai's votes. Lei Ming was extremely excited. I can finally take back the rankings. Last year, because of Jiang Mai's slacking, the list was all taken by the people from Starlight. As soon as Jiang Mai returned to the nanny van, although he still looked mature and steady, his demeanor immediately returned to normal. He scratched his silky hair, raised his eyebrows and shook his legs. I've told you that as long as I want to, there's nothing I can't do. If a tiger didn't show its might, people would really think that it was Hello Kitty. Daddy will teach you how to be a man. How's Ningxi doing? Jiang Mai asked seriously. Lei Ming looked at the data and frowned. Ningxi, I'm afraid it's a bit tricky, that you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.